Welcome to our second video on transient modeling. In the last tutorial, I mentioned that transient simulations generally require two groundwater models. One, a starting condition model, which describes groundwater conditions before your project's effects, for example, before dewatering. And two, a transient model, which forecasts how groundwater conditions will change after applying your project's effects. In the previous tutorial, I showed you a shortcut method to substitute the starting condition model with average heads, and we discussed how that approach was suitable for simple site-scale models. However, for many simulations, especially regional scale models, you'll need to take the conventional approach of creating both models separately and then linking them together. This tutorial explains how to do just that. Here's a quick note on creating your models. Although you will need two models, there is no rule saying which one you need to create first. But there are two rules that you must follow when creating your models. First, both models must include exactly the same wells, boundaries, SVAS points, and other groundwater stresses. And second, in your starting condition model, these groundwater stresses, such as wells, drains, trenches, or infiltration areas, must be present but inactive, for example, zero pumping rate. You need to follow these two rules so that Anaqsim can record and then report the initial groundwater heads in the same locations for both models. Now let's go through an example step by step using our previous tutorial's model. Step 1. Create the starting condition model. Open your existing site-scale Anaqsim file from the last tutorial. Currently, this file is set up as a transient model, so let's adjust it. First, save a copy to preserve your original. Go to File, Save As, and give it a new name like Tutorial 8 Starting Condition Model. Next, set the model to steady-state conditions. Go to Model Input, General, and then check the Steady box. Click File, Save. Run the model by clicking Solve. You'll notice groundwater is flowing towards the center of the model because the discharge wells are still active. And since we don't want them pumping in our starting condition, let's go and turn them off. Go to Model Input, Pumping wells, discharge specified. Set all well pumping rates to 0. Click File, Save. Run and view the model again. Now the model should have a flat gradient, which is what we want for our starting condition model in this exercise. Step 2. Create the transient model. Now, save a copy of your starting conditions model, which we'll use to create your transient model. Go to File, Save As, and choose a file name like Tutorial 8 Transient Condition Model. Next, activate your project stresses like wells or trenches. In this exercise, we only have those 3 wells. Let's turn those back on. Go to Model Input, Pumping wells, Discharge specified. Enter discharge values to simulate pumping effects. Input -200 for all 3 wells. Then switch the model to transient mode. Go to Model Input General and uncheck the Steady box. Click File, Save. Now, set up the simulation schedule. Go to Model Input, Time Steps. Your previous tutorial's settings are still there, so let's use those. And finally, we need to instruct Anaqsim to look for a starting condition model file instead of using the average heads as we did in the previous tutorial. Go to Model Input, Solution, Solve Settings. Under Starting Head Source, select File, click File, Save again. And that's it, your transient model is now ready. Let's move on to Step 3, linking our models with files. Now we will create 2 files that connect the inputs from both models. First, we will create an IHL file from your transient model. Go to File, Save Conditions for initial transient heads. Save the new IHL file with an easy-to-recall name like Tutorial 8 IHL. Then, close the transient model and open your starting condition model. Click Solve. After solving, select File, Write Initial Transient Heads. Select the IHL file you just created, Tutorial 8 IHL. Then save the resulting groundwater heads file as Tutorial 8 HDS. That all happened pretty quickly, so I'll explain what happened. First, Anaqsim used your transient model to create an IHL file, specifying exactly where to record groundwater heads. Then, your starting condition model recorded groundwater heads at these exact locations, saving them into an HDS file. And now, your transient model will use this HDS file as its starting condition for your transient simulation. Now on to our last step. Step 4. Run your transient simulation. You're now ready to run your transient simulation. Close the starting condition model and then reopen your transient model. Click Solve. When prompted, select your newly created HDS file, Tutorial 8 HDS, and click Open. Anaqsim will then begin calculating your transient simulation. When it is finished, go to Make Plot, All Selected Features, choose Level Time. Select different times and levels to explore how your project impacts groundwater conditions over time. Here are my final thoughts on creating IHL and HDS files. Once you've built your starting condition model and transient model, creating the IHL and HDS files only takes a few minutes. It's just a matter of clicking a few buttons and naming files. I'll note that you only need to generate these files once, unless you add, remove, or move a groundwater feature, like wells, boundaries, or SVAS points, in your transient model. If you just adjust transient schedules, like time steps, or turn features on or off, you don't need to recreate these files. And even if you do need to recreate them, it's straightforward and fast. Just a few quick clicks. That's it. You've got this. We'll see you in the next video.